So you talked about iRobot. You said you started with a few people. There are three people, right? So, what made the three of you say, man, why are we vacuuming our houses anymore? We need to make something that does this.
I got to tell you, we weren't smart enough for that.
Okay.
We decided the robots at MIT were getting a lot of attention. It was a new paradigm of robot control, behavioral control, where you have a lot of going on in real time rather than a big planning system putting all the, thinking about everything and putting all the actions in. So with this new paradigm, there were these insectoid robots, and they looked amazing, right? They were like crawl around with legs and stuff. Gets a lot of attention. And so they were on the cover of, Scientific American and, Discover and all these places. So being very naive, just out of school, we're like, there must be a business here, right? Everyone's so excited about this. Which I like to tell young entrepreneurs, don't drink your own Kool-Aid, right? Our first plan was to put the first robot steps on the moon. Now, I'm not saying we were wrong. We were maybe just 20 years ahead of our time.
Yeah.
It might be a business model you could create today with all this work going on in commercial space, but it probably wasn't the right one at the time. But we just started off, we'd do any robot for money, basically. And we worked with a lot of large companies, everyone from SC Johnson Professional to Baker Hughes Intech in the oil industry to Tennant Castec Noble, in large robotic cleaners. And we always had really amazing technology, and we always thought they were going, to the moon, so to speak.
Yeah.
But they never did, because it was really hard to push the large companies along. They work at glacial paces, and we were trying to get robots out there, and they were running research programs, basically. And it became obvious to us it wouldn't go anywhere that way. So we started raising our own venture capital in 98, and that allowed us to fund the Roomba. Now, one of my business partners at Turtle actually came up with the idea for the Roomba, Joe Jones, and he wrote a 5-page paper saying, we're doing these large cleaning robots now. It might not be the right time. Here's a concept, the simplest thing you can have. And so it's simple, but there's so much complexity if you drill down into it. How do you deal with the edges, and how do you navigate around? All those problems had to be solved. And how do you do it at a price point that people will take out their wallets and buy it? So there was a lot of invention that had to be done to get there. How do you deal with, hair? The first Roombas didn't do that well with hair, but, get wrapped around the blades. And, so much learning in the very specific industries beyond the robotic technology that we brought to bear.
So I need to say, even a regular vacuum cleaner doesn't do really good with hair, because it gets wrapped around too. And I think it's important to say this, because since I deal a lot with robotic lawnmowers, people expect, once you put the name, anything robotic or automatic, people automatically assume that it has to be able to figure out all of its own problems.
Yes.
And it's got to be better than the thing that you push around. And I'm and you're shaking your head. It's like, it sounds like you guys came up and had that issue too. I don't understand what happens, why a human brain works that way. Go ahead.
Oh, I can remember early on, Consumer Reports wrote an article about the Roomba and said, this is crazy. This takes longer than vacuuming myself. And we were shocked, right? It's like, why would someone watch the robot vacuum do the whole job and think that that's any kind of a comparison when you don't have to do any of it, right? You don't just let it do it on its own. It's the mentality. Robots actually work best today at the beginning by reimagining the job and how to do it. Like Roomba's one example, right? You do have to pick up the floor. We had complaints about that. Why can't it pick up the floor for me? Why can't it do stairs? If we had taken those feedback and incorporated them, we never would have got to market, right?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of picking a place where the robot does enough of the job to make it a real value for the customer, but not trying to take on every challenge it could possibly face.
Well, and so I'm so happy you just said that, because I actually, when I work with landscapers, people sometimes wonder, why my landscape company is so successful with these robots. And I realized right away, I don't need it to do 100% of the cutting. I need it to do a portion of it. Okay. So I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, working with all these different manufacturers where I'm like, okay, I can almost automate 75% of my mowing. That's great. So like when I hear you even talk about the Roomba, the stairs, picking up, these are all things you would have to do if you vacuumed anyways. And you don't use a lot of times the same attachment on your vacuum cleaner when you do the stairs as you use when you do the floors. So I wanted to take that opportunity to expand on what you said, because
and the lawnmowers also they reimagined the job, right? Instead of bagging the clippings and having a disposal issue, they go out more often, do the job. So you have much smaller clippings, which you can leave right on your lawn, and it's better for the lawn.
Well, it's better. And a lot of people don't realize how much better robotics are for the environment also. I mean, so Turtle, you guys are making a robot, and now we don't have to put chemical. I mean, no one wants chemicals in their gardens, right?
Yes.
And now they don't have to put chemical in the garden. If they use
I wouldn't even dream of putting chemicals in my garden, in my vegetable garden.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we know commercial farming, they have to spray chemicals, and then for us with robotic lawn mowing, one of the things that I tell people is, when you actually look, and I don't know if you know this or not, but like, a lawnmower, you can take 11 Toyota Camrys and put it next to one high idling zero turn, and that zero turn lawnmower makes the same amount of carbon emission as 11 of these Toyota Camrys.
Wow.
Okay? Because vehicles have all sorts of emissions control, and catalytic converters and stuff. Lawnmowers don't. So one of the things that I tell people is automation is not only a lot of times a redundant labor saver, it's also great for the environment. It's great for where we live. They're quiet. Butterflies and bees, I'm sure, don't mind your robot moving around inside that garden. So,
can I say a little about the Turtle?
Yeah, go ahead. This is what the show is about. Let's talk about it.
It's another example of reimagining the job for a robot, right? It's a little robot that weeds, and the way it weeds is it takes out any seeds that start to sprout with its cleated wheels. And if a weed dares to poke up its little head, off with its head with a weed.
So Helen, real quick, I just want to interject real quick where you're at. So not everybody's going to watch this on YouTube and be able to see that. So I just want to dissect what she was just holding up at the screen. So you have to understand, if you were looking at this robot right now, the wheels are not like a normal wheel. They sit at an angle. How many degree angle are those wheels on? Like what's the approximate degree? Like 60 degree probably?
Yeah, looks around 45.
Okay, so 45 degree angle. So they sit on this weird angle, which when she said it, like, as it's going, it's like it cultivates the bed. So imagine a garden bed, or a garden usually has nice composted soil. So it's working the top layer of that soil. Okay. Yeah. And that's one of the things I could see as she was holding it up.
In doing so, it disrupts the seeds as they start to sprout. And that, that interrupts about half of them. So they never sprout. But if they do.
Yep. So to explain, I'm going to explain what's on the bottom. So
there's a small weed whacker between the wheels that can spin. It's about, 2 inches long. And as it's running around, 50% of the time it's spinning its weed whacker in case any weeds show up. Now, the question is going to be, with this small Roomba-like but smaller device, how does it not get your plants? And the first thing is it's got capacitance sensors around it. So it senses if it makes contact with a plant, and it's very light touch, and it just goes the other way. and we've had no trouble with it acting gently with plants. If there's something that's low, it considers that a weed, because when you put the turtle in a garden, you start with a fully weeded garden, usually at the beginning of the year, or you do one less weeding. You put it in, and it prevents weeds from ever growing. So it doesn't go out like a human, and it detects a weed, recognizes it, has a dexterous arm and manipulate it, and then has a disposal problem. Instead, it reimagines the job to do it robotically, and it prevents weeds from ever growing. To protect your small plants, which it might think is a weed, we have a small wire piece. It's a little circular plant gourd. And if there's a seed you put in, you just put this around it. Or if there's a very small seedling that you want to protect. And when it gets to be about 3 or 4 inches tall, you can leave the gourd on, or you can take it away and it'll be fine.
So can you explain the capacitance feature? Can you break down a little bit on how that even works, how the robot detects that when it's coming
it's basically detecting the electron flow. It basically detects if there's moisture in something, so it won't hurt anything that if it's metallic or if it's a piece of wood. It even works on stone. It doesn't work well on plastic, I have to tell you, because it doesn't detect that as with the capacitance sensors. But it's not just the capacitance sensors. There's a dozen sensors that we fused with the robotic algorithms to have a lot of behaviors that allows it to navigate all around the garden.
So
it's also it's solar powered. If you look at the top of it, it's got a big square solar panel. Most of the top of the device is solar panel. This guy, it lives in your vegetable garden. And you don't take it out all year. And every day, intermittently throughout the day, every 20 minutes or so, we'll check if it's got battery charge. It'll come on and it'll do some weeding, and then it'll shut down, charge up, and it'll do it again. So it's running all throughout the day to get the best conditions.
And then at night, it just shuts off and waits for the sun to come back up.
That's right.
So is there a way to charge it? Let's say if it's cloudy a bunch of days and somebody wants to charge it up and put it out in the garden, is there a way to do that?
So usually there's enough sun for a few days, because we never go down too low on the battery. So it'll last for several days, even if it becomes cloudy. But if somebody wants to or has a need, there is a small USB port at the bottom. You take off this cap, you plug it in. So if you wanted it to run for longer for whatever reason, you could take it inside, charge it with a USB, and put it back out in the garden.
And what's your guys's what's the price point on that unit?
This is $349.
$349. So here, this is like I just want to do
but
this.
That takes care of your weeding all year for years.
so here I'm gonna get to this. So $349, and what will we agree on? How many months is a garden going? Probably 5 months, typically 6 months.
We suggest leaving it a little longer, because you want it in before the weeds start, and you want to keep it weeded after you take the plant, after you're done harvesting.
So probably 210 days in a year, right?
Yeah, take it out before the frost. But when you would take your hoses in, I think would be a good rule.
Yeah. So if we I like to take opportunities like this, because this is like how this is how my business owner brain works. So I hear $349, and I say, okay, 210 days in the year, you might be able to use that unit. So if you just break down the yearly cost and say $349 divided by 210, okay, you're at $1.66 a day, right? Mm-hmm. But how many years do you think you get out of that unit? How long is that been lasting? It
depends what you do to it, for 2 or 3 years, mate.
Yeah. So let's just divide
it. It hasn't been on the market long enough to know exactly.
Yeah. So for less than 55 cents a day, you never have to worry about weeding your garden. So see, this is the stuff for me that like I always like to work with people like you guys, because this is the stuff I try to get out to end users. Is you have to look at like the cost per day to not have that stuff in the garden ever. So I think that's amazing. I mean, that's such a small cost. And how many square feet? This is important. How many square feet can one of those do in a day?
It'll be about 200 square feet.
Okay.
And
then if
most
you have more
vegetable
square footage,
gardens,
you just put multiple bats, right?
yeah, well, quite a few of our customers do that. If they have a small farm or something, they try it because it's easy to try. You don't have to do a huge investment to try it. You section off an area for it, and then it'd be in a 200 square foot area, and the next year you can buy another one for the next area, then another one for the next area, and build up if you have a larger area.
Yeah.
That brings us to, it does require a boundary around the robot, a 3 to 4 inch boundary. And that seems to work in vegetable gardens because people, they tend to have some kind of delineation for the vegetable garden, or you don't mind putting in, either a piece of wood, or you might have a raised bed already that has a delineation. But it doesn't have an automatic boundarying system, which is why we don't market it yet to landscape beds.
Okay.
But I've had one in a landscape bed, and I have one in my blueberries this year, and it's doing awesome.
Well, we have plenty of customers that Automated Outdoor Solutions already has that have plenty of vegetable gardens. We got to figure out how to get these things on our website, because I think they're amazing.